So today we're going to be talking about, I wanted to talk about African American icons and how they reverberated with Yoruba strategies for freedom. But because all you ladies are here tonight and you're all performance artists, you're all working in the culture, trying to make things happen, I wanted to speak about feminine archetypes in African traditional culture. Particularly in Yoruba culture. With the Yoruba, like many West and Central African traditions, women are the most respected. Women are the most feared. Women are more powerful than male violence. Women's spiritual violence is much more feared than men's physical violence. And if you look at whether it's Congo or Yoruba or Ahearn or Dogon, most of the protections, most of the spiritual protections that are made by men to protect men from women. Most of the male societies are about protecting men from women, or easing women so that there's less spiritual violence. There's a great deal of fear and respect for women. And this is because women are always first. Nothing happens without women being first. And as always being first, there's an authority about that. And that authority can be oppressive to the male identity. You know what I'm saying? And oftentimes men will resort to violence to usurp that authority and then find themselves in a situation where they are criminalizing themselves by the way in which they are usurping power from women, and that gives women even more power. You know? I want to start with Odu. Oludumare means the good God Almighty in Yoruba culture. Odu is a key word in Oludumare, because Odu means the space where things can happen. If something's going to happen, it's going to happen in the place of Odu. So Odu is the oldest, most powerful Orisha. You know, all the Orisha have to take place somewhere. And it is Odu that is the ultimate medium. Odu is time and space itself. In a very real sense, the Yoruba see us as living in a womb. And that womb is often described as two calabashes, two gourds intersecting, like in your work, where you're working with the gourds instead of the cups. I think that when you talk about the Holy Grail as being a cup and holding Christ, well then the cup itself is Mother Mary. You get what I'm saying? So Odu has that type of relationship. The gourd, everything that goes on in the gourd is actually the gourd. You know what I'm saying? So in a real sense, men are women. And it's in our DNA. A woman is XX, a man is still X, and then Y. Yes. You know, so in real terms, humanity is feminine. Humanity is a woman. And males are a mutation away from women. Very slight, in fact. When you look at the male genome, the Y, it's much smaller than the X, you know, because it's hard to say which came first, the chicken or the egg, but the idea of womanhood is easy to say which came first. A woman came first because a woman is the medium that all things come out of. Right? So Odu, meaning time and space, meaning the whole large space where something happens. The thing that happens in it is a man or a woman, but it's always a woman because it happens in a feminine space, you know? The idea of being a medium right away means that as a woman, there's this ability to have others be involved, be communal with you. The feminine identity is much more open to communal thinking than the male identity. You know what I'm saying? So you start off with Odu, which is where Mare happens, where the intertwining strings of energy expressing themselves as matter. All of it happens within the womb, the gourd, the pot of Odu, the spoon. All of these tools are expressions of femininity. When you look at the Ankh, of course, the head of the Ankh is an expression of femininity. When you look at Mende culture, the Mende, the famous Aquaba dance wands that are given to young ladies in Mende culture have a very large round head and a very small abstract body. The large round head is because it's to stress in the culture that a woman's true creativity, though she does give birth, and that's important, a woman's true creativity is in her mind. You know what I'm saying? And that she should not be looked upon as just a vessel for the next life. That her life is full of creativity, unbound. Odu, if you've ever seen that game where they put stones around and there's the 4 holes. There's the 4 holes, and it goes by many different names, Macabre. Yeah. There's the 8 holes, 4 on each side.
Yes.
And each hole is Odu. So that's one of the places that Odu comes from. And Odu is always binary. It's either open or closed. It's either open to having something happen or it's closed to it. Which brings me to the next Orisha, the most senior Orisha in Yoruba terms, as far as Awaniya. Awaniya means our mothers, and it includes all ideas of femininity. So Odu is Awaniya, and Nana, or Nana Baruku, which is very interesting to me because, you know, I always like to repeat that quote, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. You have the rap star right now that calls herself the Il Nana, you know? That's exactly what Nana Baruku means, the Il Nana, the wicked Nana. And it's a reference to the greatest fear that the Yoruba have for women. The greatest fear that the Yoruba have for a woman is a woman who has never given birth. Because the idea is that all that creative energy, all that creative spirit that wasn't used on giving birth to children can now be used to spiritually change and move society. You know what I'm saying?
Wait, what is the term for that?
The Orisha is called Nana, N-A, Baruku. B-U-R-K-K, I believe, U. B-U-R-U-K-K-U. Maybe with just one K. Nana Baruku. Nana Baruku is outer space. And her strategy First off, she's almost Stone Age. The references to her. She's from a hunter-gatherers era. Nana is a word that you'll hear throughout West Africa describing women. In Ghana, in the culture, in the Khan culture of Ghana, you have Nana Nancy, the spider. You know what I'm saying? Nana is any ruler in Ghana is called Nana after original Queen Nana. You know what I'm saying? So and Oba is like that as well. Oba for the Yoruba. When you think of a king, you think of a man in our upbringing, but in Yoruba and West Africa, you have terms like king that were originally for women and end up describing men too. Hey, how's it going, Jim? So Nana Baruku is her strategy for hunting, for instance. She would go out with a whole bunch of her girlfriends and she would run down the prey. As human beings, we're very much weaker than a lot of the things we ate, a lot of the animals we ate. And the way in which we overcame that weakness was through endurance. Most animals can move faster than us and are stronger than us. However, we can go and jog for much longer than any other animal. And a bunch of women, 15, 20 women, could bring down an elephant just by chasing that elephant over and over for days, not letting the elephant sit, not letting the elephant just keep chasing and chasing and chasing. And then eventually, when the animal is completely exhausted, the women would completely surround the animal in a ring. And each one of them would have a spear, just a wooden spear, and close in on the animal, juke the animal to its death, or if the animal found some more energy, and let the animal go and just keep chasing and chasing and chasing, and then again circling. This strategy was unbeatable, you know, and it actually worked with men as well. Men who were violent, criminal, could be hunted down in the same way, you know. And Nana is well known for punishing wicked men. Nana has this whole story of actually being born a twin, but she wasn't a normal twin. She was a twin that had taken over the other twin. A twin which had the other twin deeply into the body of the other twin, not just Siamese twins, but so deeply into the body that she was said to have been born holding a staff. And there's stories that this staff was possibly her twin that she was holding. But in any case, this staff, it's a very specific staff. If you look it up when you go online, you'll see Brazilian versions of it, Cuban versions of it, and West African versions of it for Nana Baruku. And the staff is basically a loop. It looks very much like an ankh, similar to the Mende dance wand. You know, it has a very specific little hook on top. And with this, she would point at a wicked man's belly. And that wicked man would grow bigger and bigger off of his greed, off of his wish to have, his wish to consume, bigger and bigger until his belly explodes. Wow. You know what I'm saying? Nana is like, Nana's a mathematician, because Odu again is binary code. Computers right now are Nana, you know what I'm saying? They're literally the body of Odu. One of Nana's skills is having the type of mind that can do accounting, that can do like the ladies who did the math for the moonshot. That's very much a Nana type of thing. My own mother, she was a computer back in the day, and then she eventually started to work with computers. Nana is the secretary, the accountant, the administrator. Nana is this concept of having the type of mind that organizes things and orchestrates things. Nana is the only Orisha that deals with deadly herbs. She's known to make her sacrifices, her goat sacrifices, by just giving the goat a handful of herbs, and the goat dies from the herbs. You know what I'm saying? She's the poisoner. She's the black widow. She's the black mamba. She is the most fearsome of all the Orisha in a sense, you know, because, like I said, she is the senior mother that had no children, and thus has authority right up next to Odu, right up next to God in the feminine pantheon. After Nana, which is space, and you can see what space is. We're all in a trap, just like Nana makes the trap around the beast with all the spears pointing in. We're all on Earth. This is a gravity pot, and we are all trapped in Nana's pot. You know what I'm saying? In Nana's cup, in Nana's spoon. The interesting thing is that Nana does not want us to leave. It is very difficult to get out of the Earth's gravity well. And Nana is not providing the nourishment that the other mediums that we are subsumed in offer us. And first, the next senior medium to Nana is Yemoja. Yemoja, also called Yemaya, which is the Spanish spelling of it, Yemoja, which is short for Iya, which is so important. I forget that I didn't say what Iya means. Iya means mother, but more importantly, Iya means the owner of pain, Ya. Meaning that the pain that a mother goes through in having childbirth is why she has seniority, is why she has authority, is why she has respect. True money should be measured in pain from the Yoruba perspective. And like I said, men are women too. It's just men are rewarded for sprouting seed, whereas women feel pain from not having a child and letting their seed go, and also pain from having that seed. You know what I'm saying? But seed is seed. We all drop seed. So in a sense, we're all women, you know? But the pain that a woman goes through, there's a Jewish prayer where the men say, thank God that I wasn't born a woman. Thank God that I don't have to go through the pain of being a woman. You know what I'm saying? From a Yoruba perspective, that pain is a badge of honor. And you can see this in Yemoja. The molecule that really explains Yemoja is a molecule called oxytocin,
Oxytocin.
Oxytocin, which is molecular biologists are calling it the moral molecule, in contrast to DNA, which is called the selfish molecule. It's interesting because Obatala is DNA. And Obatala has a feminine road, but I'm going to go through all of the completely female roads before I speak about the male roads and their feminine roads. All right, so Yemoja is the blues, the owner of pain, the owner of depression, the owner of that down, murky water, soul-searching, looking through yourself like the ocean looks through the sands of the sea type of feeling. Yemoja is the dyer of the indigo dyer. Yemoja dyes the work clothes of Ogun and Alegba indigo blue, like blue jeans, you know. Yemoja, her name literally means Iya, the owner of pain, or mother. Omo, the mother of the children. Omo. Ja, of the fishes. The owner, the mother of the children are the fishes. And when the Yoruba say that, they're actually saying that we are the children of the fishes. That our ancestors came from fish. And this was an archaic notion amongst the Yoruba. I'm sure they got it from comparative anatomy and noticing that all quadrupeds, birds, human beings, all of the mammals, all have anatomy with characteristics that you can find going back to the fish in the sea. And because the fish in the sea had the simplest, most rudimentary of those characteristics, it's obvious they came before us. They used to carve gills into the children's faces. These marks on the face were family marks to let you know what family you were, whether you had 2 or 3 or whatever. But they were also marks to represent gills, so that when you died and returned to the ocean, which is the belief of the Yoruba, you died and returned to the ocean, Yemaya would recognize you, as being her child. Of course, we know today that the remnants of our gills are actually our ears, and our ears are connected into our throat and nose because we once breathed out of them when we were in the ocean. But now, the little bones and muscles that used to manipulate our gills we use to hear with. Yemoja is the senior mother. In Yoruba music, for instance, in European music, the treble sings. The treble is the one that everybody wants to listen to, the soprano, the treble. That's the one that sings the melody. That's the one that tells the story. But in Yoruba music, it's the opposite. Instead of the bass keeping the rhythm and just Montana, keeping, it is the treble that keeps the rhythm. And it's a legba who is the treble, the smallest. The bass is iya, the voice of authority that sings the melody, is the deepest voice. It's funny, you would think that a woman would have the highest voice, but no. They are specifically talking about a woman that has gone through minstrelsy, through her menstruation. She's post-menstrual. And as a result, she has that deep baritone voice because of the hormonal changes she's going through.
She sounds like Anita Baker.
Boom. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, think of Anita Baker as a grandma.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
That's what I'm really. They're really talking about that old lady in the church. That when she speaks, everybody shuts the fuck up. You know what I'm saying?
That's my mama.
You know, the voice of authority, more so than any deacon or the preacher himself. You know what I'm saying? Yemoja Yemoja is goes through a lot of marriages and has a lot of children. In Yoruba stories, they talk about pataki. Pataki are basically parables. P-A-T-A-K-I, pataki. Pataki are basically parables. And the pataki of Yemoja have her first marrying Ogun. In her marriage to Ogun, you have stories like Yemoja, Ogun's constantly coming up to Yemoja asking her to marry her, please marry me, please marry me. Yemoja finally says, okay, I'll marry you as long as you never make fun of my breasts. That's all I ask of you. You can do whatever you like, you can be as free as you like, but never disrespect me by making fun of my breasts. And he's like, cool, no problem, I'll never do it. And he promises, and then he basically is coming home from the hunt one day, and he sees her pounding yams. She's pounding yams for him to eat. Coming home, have dinner. She's pounding yams, and as he walks up, he says, wow, look at them. They're like two dogs fighting. She looks at him, and her whole spirit breaks. She turns around, walks away, and it says that she falls down and becomes the ocean. And that you hear a lot in Europe, especially with Yemoja and Oshun. Yemoja always walks off and becomes the ocean. Oshun always walks off and becomes the river. This idea of suicide, this idea of depression, this idea of being oxytocin is what you feel when somebody is heroic, when you feel this prideful feeling of somebody overcoming difficulty. The flip side of that is depression, where you feel this overwhelming, sinking feeling that you can never escape the hardship of your society other than through suicide. You know what I'm saying? Again, the Yoruba would never say it was suicide. They would say she fell down and became the ocean. Yemoja marries Ogun in another story in order to learn how to silversmith. So she marries him to pick up that skill, silversmithing, because Ogun was the blacksmith and the only one allowed to work with metal. Males trying to catch a little bit of, so Yemaya marries him, and as his wife is able to work with the metal and eventually becomes a silversmith. Yemoja is called La Regla, because she is the owner of rules and regulations. Remember I said Nana was an administrator? Yemoja is a governor. She's about good governance.
You said Yemoja is married to
Ogun as one. But there are stories where she's married to many different Orisha, Obatala. There's a story where Obatala rapes her in the woods. Obatala rapes her in the woods. And she has a child by Obatala, but he goes off somewhere. And then one day Obatala decides he wants to make a human sacrifice. So he goes into the woods and grabs this boy. And he's about to sacrifice the boy when Yemoja comes out the bush and says, do you remember me? And he says, yeah, I do. Remember how you raped me? She's like, yeah, I do. She's like, now you're about to kill your child? From that point on, Obatala stops all human sacrifice on the notion that you can never know whether you're killing your own child. You know what I'm saying? So it's this way that Yemoja governs. She governs by allowing her morality to be clear to everyone else. So she doesn't have to write the law. They write the law for her. You know what I'm saying? Yemoja is salt water. Salt water is very different from fresh water. And it's interesting to me that African American sisters will make two traditional complaints about each other. One is, don't be salty with me, and the other is, don't be fresh with me. You know what I'm saying? It's real talk. That's the difference between Yemoja and Oshun. Oshun is fresh water. She's not salty. Now, we came out of the salt water. And this whole idea of the fact that we came out of it means that there must have been a struggle, a smothering, a difficulty there that pushed our ancestors to find the air. You know what I'm saying? This kind of idea also means that Yemoja must have been rejected when our ancestors left her to go to fresh water and to go to the air. This makes her salty. But also, there's the actual reason why she's salty. Because life began with Yemoja. So all that life died in Yemoja. And all that living and dying made Yemoja salty. You know what I'm saying? And then there's the idea that salt is a preservative. All around the world, people use salt water, evaporated it, and used it to make sure they had food that wouldn't rot. This idea of being a preservative, that's what mothers do. That's what rules and regulations are about. It's about preserving the weak, preserving those that would not survive otherwise. You know what I'm saying? Oshun, on the other hand, is the youngest Orisha. Yemoja is one of the oldest. Oshun is fresh water. And the thing about fresh water and salt water is that in many situations they don't mix at all. In fact, we here on these islands in New York have an estuary, which is something that you didn't really see so much in, there are estuaries in Africa, but they don't talk about them in terms of Orisha too much. But I feel it's a very powerful thing here in New York, where you have salt water moving up into the mountain and fresh water coming down. That's what the Hudson does. It's a bivalve river. It has salt water moving upstream and fresh water moving on top of it downstream, and a brackish middle. But sometimes there's an actual surface between the salt and the fresh, just like oil and water. You know what I'm saying? And this is something that you'll often see amongst different women when they are together. Some women are, more Yemoja, more less about fresh and stylish and uchi-cool. And some women are more like Yemoja, more about being motherly, not too terribly worried about being overly sexual, but it's all part of the game, whatever, But that's not their point. Their point is about nurturing and creating a community that is fair and moral. You know what I'm saying? So with Oshun literally means the source. And it's spelled O-S-U-N, O-S-H-U-N. In Brazil it's spelled O-X-U-N. Oshun literally means the source, and she is the source of civilization. The pataki about Oshun is that she takes her needle and thread and she weaves heads into families, and she weaves families into communities, and she weaves communities into nations, and she weaves nations into the world. Oshun is the source of civilization because there is no great city that did not grow up on the skirts of a fresh-watered river. Every major city around the world is based around a freshwater river, usually the delta, which is the skirt of Oshun. Oshun is often called Oshun Rere, which means the little Oshun, the Ini Tini Oshun, which is actually Ini means Tini. That's actually very close to Yoruba. It's funny how many times English and Yoruba come together like that. Oshun's pataki go Ogun is completely out of control, crazy, can't be stopped. At first we asked him to fight for us, to defeat our enemy. He went and destroyed the enemy and got so blinded by war, he's coming at his own people now. No one can stop him. And all the great warriors get together trying to figure out how they're going to stop Ogun from destroying everything. And Oshun comes up and says, I'll stop him. And they all laugh. What are you going to do, little girl? I mean, don't you see him? He's Ogun. And she's like, just watch. And she goes out with a fan and a plate full of honey. Mm-hmm. And she starts whining and dancing. Mm-hmm. And Ogun comes at her all fiery. She fans him a little. And then gives him a little honey. He licks up the honey. He comes looking for more. She fans him. Starts playing. That's how Oshun defeats Ogun. And she doesn't defeat him. She cools him out and makes him a social energy. Just like with Yemoja and Obatala, or Yemoja and Ogun, there's a story where Ogun is been going off killing and raping, and Yemoja shames him about it, and he is so shamed by it that he promises to work endlessly for society so that he can overcome the evils he's done in the past. You know what I'm saying? So basically, you have this thread going through, particularly Yemoja and Oshun, of women using femininity. And again, these two very different types of femininity, this salty type of femininity and this fresh type of femininity, to overcome patrimony and patrimonial violence and antisocial male behavior. Oshun is famous for marrying a lot of different people, and every Orisha that Oshun marries, it's almost always a story of a patrimony, of a male defying female specifically and saying, this is just for men. So just like Yemoja, Oshun marries Ogun, and like Yemoja, she doesn't learn to become a silversmith, she becomes a brass smith. And it's interesting because the Yoruba preferred brass over gold. Many times here now, Oshun is related to gold. But the thing about gold is that it's pure. It's uncorruptible. Oshun is not pure and it's not uncorruptible. Oshun is brass. She's this idea that, yeah, you can polish me. Yeah, I'll be as glittering and as alluring as gold. But if you mishandle me, if you misuse me, if you don't care for me, I can become corrupted and muddy, just like a river that's been polluted. You know what I'm saying? Because I am not noble. And that's a real important idea to have with these metals. It's only Obatala that is associated with noble metals. I mean, you can make arguments about all the Orisha having a noble metal, but Obatala is connected with lead. Lead's not a noble metal, but it's close. You know what I'm saying? And this idea of not being corrupted by water, you know, it's very Obatala. You know, the idea of being corrupted by water is very Yemaya, silver. It oxidizes with water. Copper for Oya, we haven't spoken about her yet, but I will get to her. And Oshun, brass. With brass, there's this idea of being brazen, being out in the open. You know, for me, the best example in African American, in the African American fight for civil rights, of someone using Oshun characteristics and strategies in surviving the patrimony of European supremacy was Josephine Baker. I call her Souls Ain't Just a Fiend Baker. Because just like with the Yoruba, I feel that a name should also express the strategy, the characteristics, the ideas behind that force. So Oshun is the source of civilization, and in African American culture, she came out as Souls Ain't Josephine Baker. And you can even go before that, back to the 1800s with the Yellow Rose in Texas. Because Oshun's colors, I didn't go over people's colors. Yemoja is blue and white, she is the blues. And when you look at her in African American culture, you look at a figure like Bessie Smith. My man has a heart like a stone in the sea. That is a Yemoja quote. That is the old serious blues going back to West Africa. Bessie Smith is the consummate Yemoja. In fact, there's an ivory pendant in the Metropolitan Museum of Art's collection. It is an ivory pendant, and all around the crown are Portuguese traders. And what she was doing in this crown, it's a pendant for the Queen Mother, and Yemoja is very much the Queen Mother. And the Portuguese sailors represent her riches coming from overseas. It's very similar as a sister today wearing a Gucci pocketbook. You know, my riches come from all the way from Italy, overseas. You know what I'm saying? Yemoja, the blue and white, the navel, you know, the record of where we've come from and where we're going. You have Oshun, like I said, as Josephine Baker, using sexuality instead of the celebration of hardship. Bessie Smith overwhelmed European culture with celebrating depression, you know, like Billie Holiday, another very Yemoja type of archetype. Billie Holiday singing, come on depression, sit down at the table and have a drink with me. You know what I'm saying? This idea is celebrating depression, because it isn't about whining and saying, oh, I'm a victim, and this is so, no, it's about taking that victimhood and making it a crown, making it something beautiful, making it something other people wish they had gone You know, that's what the blues is about. And it really hinges around God is good all the time. So even if I'm a victim, God was still good to me by giving me that experience. And that experience made me strong. And not only that, I'm going to use that experience to change things so that my daughters don't have to go through that. You know what I'm saying? That's Yemoja's government and her strategy as far as changing a system that is trying to enslave her or marginalize her. Oshun's strategy is sexuality. Is this idea that almost always the same people who are being violent, the same people who are enslaving people, are the same people who cannot stand sexuality. They're always Puritans. And Oshun uses that puritanical spirit against itself. Oshun uses her sexuality as something that overcomes that sense of righteousness and shows how we are all caught up in the sexual code. And that's one of the things Oshun owns, is the sexual contract. You know, the flower, the butterfly, these are sexual contracts. And those are also Oshun's symbols. So Yemoja is the motherly contract. Oshun is the sexual contract. There's a story of Oshun where she is the queen of Oshogbo, which is the Oshun state in Nigeria. O-S-H-O-G-B-O, Oshogbo. And O-S-H-U-G-B-O, Oshogbo. She's at war with the town across the river. Her fathers died in the war, her brothers died in the war, her husbands died in the war. She feels like she's lost everything. She goes across the river and she says, I'll give myself to the whole army if you'll just stop the war. And they take her. The whole army takes her. She's left all money on them. Sure, nobody thinks anybody would want her, but Ogun is so touched by the sacrifice that he falls in love with her. And he picks her up out of the mud and cares for her and washes her and makes both armies under her as queen. You know what I'm saying? So again, it's again this idea of Yemaya, this idea of I'm a slut, I'm sexually promiscuous, but that's my crown. You know what I'm saying? That's not something I'm ashamed of. And I've changed society based on that. The story of the Yellow Rose of Texas is that she was a octoroon. Oshun's often thought of as a mulatto, as a light-skinned woman, as a honey-skinned woman. Emily, I can't think of her last name.
Morgan.
Emily,
I'm from San Antonio, the Emily Morgan Hotel.
You
Yeah.
on it. That's her town, San Antonio. That's where it all started for her, the Yellow Rose of Texas. But actually, it all started for her right here. She was in Brooklyn. Emily Morgan was an octoroon who was enslaved in Brooklyn in the early 1800s. And she fled slavery in Brooklyn because it was so horrible, passed as white, and tried to make it to Mexico. She did not make it in Texas. She was caught and enslaved again in Texas. At the time, General Santana could not be stopped during the Mexican-American War. General Santana had come way up into San Antonio, into Texas, and was going to claim all of that as Mexico. And no one could stop him. They were afraid of him. He had just killed Daniel Boone and all the cats. You know, remember that? You know, The Alamo was Santa Ana in that ass. But Emily Morgan, the Yellow Rose of Texas, was asked by her master to keep General Santana in his tent all night, no matter what. And they felt that if he wasn't able to come out to the front, they would be able to overcome him. And that's what she did. The story goes that by hook or crook, either through sexuality, and they also gave her some heroin, there's stories like that, but she kept him in his tent. And as a result, Texas is not Mexico. Now,
I would debate that. Culturally, it is.
Yeah, really, well, you know.
Yeah, we know.
New Mexico ain't nothing but Mexico.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But the bottom line is that the reason that European Americans sing that song is to marginalize and hate on this very notion of Oshun. And you see the same thing happen to Josephine Baker 100 years later. The sad thing is that many in our community, Yemojas, get salty with those fresh Oshuns and have the same criticism and fall into the same thing. You know, so Oshun gets marginalized that way. But then, back on the other hand, Bessie Smith gets marginalized as being a dark-skinned, thick black woman. That's an Oshun criticism, you know what I'm saying? So you have this interconflict among the women, the female archetypes that play themselves out in the male abuse of all women.
And could you argue that also in those racist tropes you have the mammy and the Jezebel?
That's Yemoja is the mammy, our Nana, remember administration, but Yemoja definitely. And I'm going to get into this a little later, but it's interesting that the mammy does not have blue and white checkered handkerchief. If it were really Yemoja, it'd be a blue and white checkered handkerchief. What you often see with the mammy's here is it's red and white. Red and white has more to do with Chango. Now, I wanted to wait to get to the male ones with their robes, but Chango, women are a very big impact on followers on Chango. And the women that follow Chango, even though they're women, they're called sons. These are basically, when you talk about in the old black church, that old battle axe over there, a battle axe, a Chango. That's what I feel the man really is talking about. You know, it's this concept of a female Chango that might as well be a man because does everything, says everything, overwhelms, you know, they feminize their male counterpart. That's how strong a Chango they are. You get what I'm saying? But in any case, going back to Oshun, I wanted to go through all the people she married and what she took from them. First Ogun, she learned brass smithing from him when metal smithing was only for men. Then she married Ozine, learned herbalism from him. And the thing about it is that all of these were only for men, and also they didn't share it with other Orisha. She shares it. Then there was Ifa, Orumila. Orumila was only for men, only men could divine, only men could be a witness of creation. She marries him and develops her own divination that she shares amongst women and with all the other Orisha that didn't have divination. So this idea of the masculine one to own a particular expertise, to own a particular thing, and the female one to be able to do it just like the guys, and when they do it, make sure everybody has a chance to do it. You know, so again, it's overcoming of male dominance. It's overcoming of enslavement or marginalization. Then you have Oya. Oya is the air. So we have the salt water. I didn't speak about Olokun. Olokun is the deep. And Olokun is actually older than sexuality. And you see this in the deep waters because fish in the deep water can change sexuality. You know, they literally, a woman, be born a woman, and if there's no men around, turn into a man. Or be born a man and turn into a woman. You know, and this is Olokun, the deep. No one knows what goes on in the deep, is what the Yoruba used to say, but now we do know. And Olokun is considered both as a man and as a woman.
How do you spell it?
Olokun. Olo, owner, kun, deep. Olokun's colors are also blue and white, like in Mujab. Olokun is the Orisha of polio. Olokun, as a man, was the king, and unfortunately he had polio as a child, like FDR. And as a result, his legs were very malformed. But his followers would say his legs are malformed and he can't walk on them because his legs are mudfish. Mudfish is a type of fish that you find in West Africa that can crawl up. It's about 3 feet long, and it can crawl up onto the shore, and it has lungs. So it has both gills and lungs. So from a Yoruba point of view, we had to have been mudfish once because it's one of the few fish that has lungs. You know, all the other fish only have gills. You know, and you can see this fish crawling up out of the water and living on land. So you know that this fish was the way in which all reptiles and mammals got on land. The mudfish also is an electric mudfish. In West Africa, this mudfish is well known because if you grab it on the shore, it can shock you so hard that it throws you several feet away. And Olokun is considered to have these legs of the mudfish because his authority, the authority of the voice, shocks the person. You know, and this goes back to Chongo with the authority of the voice. And all of that authority always comes down to women. Always the man who has that type of authority to make someone jump, the only way he gets that authority is by being crowned by women. And women are basically the fomenters of that crown because women keep authority and power moving towards social justice. It is the female identity, the woman's identity, the identity of sister and mother that forces society, forces our being to arc towards justice and equality and the perseverance of the weak and the protection of the sick and the poor. Oya, again, owner, Ya, Y-A. Oya, Ya means pain. She's the owner of pain. Oya was a slave. She is, all right. Nana is administration. Yebaya is governance and rules and regulations. Oshun is the banks, is currency, like a riverbank. Money in Yoruba land used to be either brass or cowrie shells. And Oshun held the banks. Oya is the marketplace. Now, what's interesting is that if you ask somebody who works in the stock market, they talk about the dew point of any particular thing for sale. In the market, things can have any price. The dew point is when you actually pay for it. When that thing is paid for, as artists, this is very important because your auction value, when they look at, when you go up for auction, if you've never gone up for auction before, you have no price on your work. There's no way anybody can know how much your work costs. It's the air, it's the marketplace. It could be up, it could be down, it could be anything. But then, once somebody puts money on your work in an open auction, where everybody sees how much money you're paying, that is what produces the value of your work. The dew point, where the humidity in the air suddenly becomes an actual drop of water that hits the river and adds to the bank. You know what I'm saying? So you have this relationship where you have Oya, the marketplace, where things are free and open, capitalism. Capitalism gives way to the bank. The bank is Oshun, it's society. The bank should not be about making money. It should be about holding that money and distributing that money in a social way. And where does it find the means to distribute that money in a social way? Through rules and regulations, through governance, you know, so a social capitalism was what was operating in West Africa and what we're still operating with today. The free market without the bank and without rules and regulations and governance is too free. It becomes antisocial. It becomes the terror, which is another, Oya is also known as the terror. And it means both, to terrorize and to tear. Capitalism unfettered, capitalism unbridled, will tear society apart. It is only through the banks regulating that capitalism, through the rules and regulations of governance administered by Nana, so that everything is open and clear and mathematically correct. So you see here, the women are describing how society is set up. And each of them take the high points of society and are basically the means by which society is able to function, to generate wealth, to generate innovation, to change, but also to have the stability and the morality to make sure that no member is marginalized. So these kinds of checks and balances were very important in West African governance, and also still very important in our governance, because there's a lot of things about our governance that's very similar to what was going on in the Oyo Empire in the 1400s. They had a stock market. Chongo was famous for working the stock market. They had banks. Oshun, which was Chongo's second wife, was famous for running the banks. His third wife, Oya, which he originally bought as a slave. When Chongo went to the marketplace, he saw her as caged up, a beautiful, tall black woman. She's known for having very dark skin, and she was a slave. And he goes to buy this slave, and as he's buying her, she says to him, "You don't even own your own head. You're gonna have to give that back to the person who really owns it. So why do you think you can own my head?" He's so struck by her that he frees her, makes her emperor, and tries to stop slavery based on her. So she is the quintessential symbol of freedom. She is the African Harriet Tubman, who I call Soul Saint Harriet Tubman. You know, Soul Chariot. That's Harriet, Soul Chariot. You know, Swing Low, Soul Chariot. And of course, Soul Chariot is the Statue of Liberty. The Statue of Liberty was not made for immigration. The Statue of Liberty was made to celebrate the freedom of the slaves. And it is copper, which again, just like Yemoja marries Ogun and becomes the silversmith, Oshun marries Ogun and becomes the blacksmith, or Yah marries Ogun and becomes the coppersmith. The coppersmith. So the image of Oya is synonymous with the Empire State, and that's what Oya was, the empress. The empress that was born a slave and broke slavery in order to rule the empire. That's Oya. And of course, the Statue of Liberty is made of copper. And that's her colors. Her colors are the color of the Statue of Liberty, that patina green, and the color of polished copper, that red. That combination is Oya's colors. And Oshun's colors is honey and red, like lipstick red. And then Oba. Oba is Chango's first wife. Oba, O-B-A, is the navigator and the educator. And the idea goes like this: you cannot navigate without education. The only way you can actually choose where you're going is to know what's already there. That was the problem with Columbus. He had no education, so he went off going someplace where he thought he was going to India, but ended up finding he was nowhere near India. But he didn't know better, so he thought he was in India. That is what Oba is talking about. Oba's symbol is the long sword, and it is with this long sword that she navigates. Oba is all about education. Oba is the reason why you strive to devour as much information as you can about the world, so that you have a greater potential of choosing where you go rather than just ending up there. Changlo is a mama's boy, really. Chango has many different pataki. Most of them, he's the child of Yemoja. But once again, these pataki talk about stories that go over generations. So sometimes Chango is the child of Yemoja. Sometimes Chango could be the child of Olokun. I mean, all types of things can happen. All types of relationships, because it's talking about people who actually live these lives. So pataki can change back and forth. But what doesn't change is the characteristics of the folks involved, and what those characteristics reflect as in the natural world. So Chango, Yemoja's child, he is, his hair is braided, corn rolled like an MC. Hip hop has so many Yoruba reflections, it's ridiculous. Red and black is Alegba. Alegba, like Oloku, is both male and female. You have Eshubi, which is the male side, and then you have the female side, which is slipping my head right now. But the idea is that just like Oloku Olegba is older than sexuality, so it's both sexes at once. Chango is very much a god, but with all the insecurities of being a god, you know. Ogun is a natural man. Ogun is a man that is not a mama's boy. He's out there ripping up herbs. He's like the stone man, ripping up herbs and breaking things with his brute force. And Chango, on the other hand, is the one that's educated by women. The one that's raised by women and educated by women. In African American street culture, you have two different types of pimps. You have the guerrilla pimp, which is very much the goon pimp, you know, comes around, does and then you have the golden pimp, you know, which is very much a Chango pimp, often raised by whores in a whorehouse. They talk about, you know, I was born in a whorehouse. But because they were raised by women in the trade, they have a very different relationship with those women than the forceful guerrilla pimp. And this is true for John Law. He's raised by women, he's educated by women, he's cultured by women. Each woman he marries teaches him how to fight. Oba teaches him how to fight with the sword. Oshun teaches him how to fight with the knife. And Oya Fami teaches him how to fight with the axe. Of course, that sways back and forth, but you know, nothing is absolutely rigid. All of it's fluid. It's more about how it specifically means that in your life, how you specifically apply it to your experience. So, but basically, Chango marries Oba first, then he marries Oshun. Then he marries Oya. Oya and Oshun are friends. Oba was there from the start, always counseling him, the reason why he became powerful and rich. But no, he does not listen to Oba. She keeps telling him advice and he refuses to listen, and she feels that he is not paying attention to her. So he goes to Oshun and Oya, and he's like, what do y'all do? He listens to everything y'all say to him. And they're both wearing gele. Gele is that head wrap, you know? And they tell her, well, there is one thing you did to get him to listen to us. You might want to try it, but I'm not sure if you will. It's a very difficult, very hard sacrifice, very, very hard. She's like, now tell me. They're like, well, we cut off our ear and put it into his okra and palm oil soup. And after he ate the soup with our ear, he listens to us all the time. And she looks, and she's like, oh, that's why y'all are wearing the gele, because you know, yeah. And she goes home and she cuts her ear off and puts it into the soup and makes the soup up for him. He comes home, and before he reaches home, he goes and sits with Rumala, with Ifa, and Ifa tells him, don't eat dinner tonight. He's like, okay. So he goes home and she's like, I got dinner for you. She's like, I'm not eating tonight. She's like, what do you mean you're not eating tonight? So the next day she goes and sees Oshun and Oya, and she's like, I did what you guys said, but he did it. And they said, you did what? I did exactly what you, they said, what? Please. And they take off their gele, and their ears are there. And they're like, why would you do that? You were just joking. And she goes off screaming, ah! Now, I tell this story because I feel that Orisha tend to repeat. Not repeat, but rhyme. You see the same figures over and over again. Mm-hmm. And remember I was talking about sexuality, how it can go back and forth. In Oba, they talk about whether you're a man or a woman in Yoruba land, they will call you Oba. You know what I'm saying? It's like calling a woman king, you know, or calling a man queen. It's more like calling a man queen, actually. But they'll call a man Oba. Van Gogh. Van Gogh is the story of Oba. You know what I'm saying? This idea of being so crazy, trying to please people, that you would cut off your own ear just to try to please people, just to try to get love and respect from people. You know what I'm saying? That kind of insanity comes up, and it will come up. It's a human expression. It's part of our human condition. And all of the Orisha show their sanity, show their strategies as to how to heal society, but all of the Orisha also show their insanity, their sicknesses, and their wishes to be antisocials, and the ways in which they would be antisocial. You know what I'm saying? And in hopes of studying Orisha, you get a stronger sense of what kind of forces are at play in your own personality, and you get a stronger sense of how to move your personality towards the more constructive, the more social directions that Orisha can go into, and to forgive yourself and even celebrate yourself when you do dip into the more insane, the more antisocial, the more difficult things. You know what I'm saying? So when Ogun starts off killing the enemy, everybody's happy, great, Ogun, great, but he gets so into the violence that he turns around and brings it back on his friends, and they can't stop. He gets so into the violence that eventually he brings it on himself. So Ogun kills himself with the violence that was at first supposed to be social and protect his people. Yemoja, again, a woman who's proud, beautiful, her community looks up to her, but a little bit of criticism starts her going into a self-critical thing that moves her towards attacking herself with suicide. You know what I'm saying? Oshun, in her youth, she's the queen of the town. Everybody loves her. Everybody is celebrating her sexuality and her beauty. But then as she goes older, she becomes marginalized. She becomes an old lady that nobody cheers anymore. She starts to regret her sexuality and starts to see herself as more being used than using her sexuality as a freeing force. And she becomes shamed by it. And they talk about in Haiti, the Urzuli as the old lady. Urzuli is what they call Oshun in Haiti. They talk about the old lady cleaning her yellow clothes until they become white. You know what I'm saying? And that whiteness is Obatala. That you're a peon. Obatala is the original king, the original nobility, the original. Of course, there are stories, Pataki, where even Obatala gets enslaved. But when Obatala is enslaved, the fields run barren and it starts to rain frogs, you know what I'm saying? Because things are so upside down, because the owner of the white cloth was enslaved, you know what I'm saying? And with Obatala, Obatala has a female rotor, and that female rotor, Obatala, is once again about purity, and you see the same kind of puritanical view towards sexuality. You know, Obatala as a woman is very much like the Christian nun. You know what I'm saying? Another one that's like that is Yewa. I didn't mention this Orisha. Yewa is another ocean Orisha. Her colors are pink and white. And she is also about this righteous femininity that looks down on sexuality as being a weak strategy of survival. You know what I'm saying? Yemoja also can have that looking down on sexuality. But of course, it's very important with Yemoja to be a mother. You know, so sexuality is of course a part of that. But if you look at, I mean, I can't stress this enough, looking at Bessie Smith, listening to Bessie Smith's work, and listening to a true Yemoja, you know what I'm saying? Then you have somebody like Mom's Mabley.
Yeah.
Now that is a real expression of a female Allegra, a real expression of a woman, particularly an older woman, that completely flabbergasts you with her sexuality and her vulgarness. You know what I'm saying? Very Allegra. Allegra's colors are red and black, white and black, or blue and black. What have I done to be so black and blue? Yemoja is very close with Allegra. Usually Yemoja is Allegra's mother, but I've heard Pataki where they're actually married. Yemoja is known for bringing life into the world with a Ganju. A Ganju is the volcano. And what's interesting is that scientists today agree with that notion. They feel that the earliest life was made where the ocean smothers volcanic spouts. And it is the heat and minerals of the volcanic sprout against the salt water that made it possible for life to begin. Wow. And it is just that dance. Sun House is a very, very Aganju type cat. And Sun House will talk about the blues as being the love between a man and a woman. And you can see how all these stories I'm telling you about the woman Orisha all reflect the relationship with men and the way in which they use their relationship with presumption of superiority. There's a beautiful story of Oshun, where Oshun, where Oya, just like when Ogun married Yemoja and said, don't make fun of me, Ogun is out hunting and he sees this water buffalo. And he's watching this water buffalo wash in the river. And then as the water buffalo comes out the river, it turns into this beautiful black woman. Oya is the buffalo. Oya is that buffalo. Buffalo girls go round and round. Tell me. Oya comes out of the river. And Ogun says, but you are a buffalo. And she says, now that you have seen this, I'll marry you, but you can never tell my secret. So Ogun says, okay, I'll marry you too, but you can never touch my hunting utensils. And they agree and they go and start a family. And Ogun has her as his first wife, but then he gets other wives. And one day he's sitting with his other wives, and Oya's nowhere around, and they get him really drunk. And they all want to know how he met Oya, how you met your first wife. And he's drunk enough, and he finally says, well, I was hunting this water buffalo, and it became Oya, and I married her. And they all start giggling out. So Ogun passes out. Oya comes back, and they're all laughing at him. Yeah, you do kind of look like a water buffalo. You dare wildebeest. You heifer. And she gets so upset. That night, she gathers all of his hunting utensils and runs off. So Oya became the owner of the hunting. And Ogun had to make a whole new body of tools, which were now farming tools. And that's how we went from hunter-gatherer to farmer. You know, Oya is the winds of change. You know, I always like to say that in terms of the civil rights movement for the Negro. You know, I have Soul Saying the Black Babe, which was Henry Gibson. Henry Gibson was the all-time hitting more home runs than Babe Ruth, but in the Negro League. Very famous, top of his game, but then Jackie Robinson gets chosen to come into the Dodgers. As soon as Jackie Robinson is brought into the Dodgers, that is the death knell of the segregated Negro League, the winds of change. Oya took his baseball bat away, took Ogun's baseball bat away, because now he can go and play with the white boys. You know what I'm saying? That's how Oya is. Yes, you may like what you change into, but it always is going to be a cost. You know what I'm saying? And somebody's going to have to pay the cost of change. So then you have Ogun is famous for wearing a palm leaf skirt, like the hula skirts of Hawaii. It's interesting because the hula skirts of Hawaii are also connected to a male warrior society. They actually take those palm fronds, raffia leaves, and weave them into armor. The palm fronds, the skirt, is worn by Ogun, and it represents Ogun's strength, because with brute force, he's ripping these palm fronds. And palm fronds split very easily, but they're very hard to tear. Very, very hard to break. You know, so he's with brute force just breaking these palm fronds and making himself a skirt. Oya makes her underwear out of palm fronds. She weaves it just like in the Hawaiian tradition. So instead of having a hula skirt, she has warrior's underwear. And that's the thing about Oya. Oya is the warrior. She has, represented by the double swords. She is copper. This idea of electricity. Chango wanted to have the power of electric authority, like I was saying. He wanted to actually speak fire, speak lightning, you know, to make things happen, crack. So he goes to Ozine and asks Ozine to make him a potion to do this. And Ozine works really hard, and then he makes this fire talker, fire walker potion, and he gives it to Legba, and he says, make sure to give this directly to the Emperor Chango and no one else. And Legba takes it, and he goes to the palace, and Oya is at the door. And he says, I have to take this to Chango. She's like, I am the empress in this palace. If anything's going to Chango, you're going to give it to me, and then we'll see what's about it, who's over. So Legba, that one and none, gives it to her and says, please, just take that straight to Chango. Don't mess with it. And she's like, of course not. I'm an empress. My word. And she goes in the palace, and the first thing she does is take a taste. And she's like, ew. And she goes into the parlor, and she opens her mouth to tell Chango there's this package, and fire and lightning comes out her mouth. And Chango says, you had to go and taste my shit, didn't you? So in this way, Oya is the first to have fire, and she's represented by the double lightning, whereas Chango is represented by the single lightning. The Pataki are really wonderful. If you get a chance, you could look up online, P-A-T-A-K-I, Pataki.
P-A-T-A. Pataki.
I.
And what is that again? I'm sorry.
Pataki means parable, or story, or fable. Yeah, so,
It's very frustrating that, at least speaking from my experience growing up, how much Roman and Greek mythology is forced upon us, so to speak, and almost nothing about African.
yeah, it's a real tragedy for us all, particularly seeing as that there are so many correlations between Roman and Greek culture and Yoruba culture. And these correlations, I don't think, happen through exchange. I don't think it was through cultural exchange.
Really?
I think it's because these characteristics are really part of human expression.
Yes.
And I feel that the Orisha are in a very sense real. You see their signature in nature, in animals, you know, and you see their signature in us. You know what I'm saying? I don't know why the firemen have red and white fire trucks, but Chongo was the original fireman, and his colors are red and white. In West Africa, after Chongo died, Chongo, all right, let me tell you that, Pataki. Chongo was the younger brother in the Oyo Empire. He was second in line to Dada. Dada, which means yes, yes, or good, good. Dada felt that it was important for an emperor to win wars through culture, art, music, dance, rather than through violence. And he made a stand saying that I don't want to take us to war with our enemies. I want us to use arts and culture to make our enemies want to be like us, to make our enemies want to be our friends, want to be within our lineage. And his strategy was very much like Bob Marley, who in Jamaica they actually call him Don Dada, because Dada is the Orisha of dreadlocks. Dada, like Chongo, was born with a head full of hair. This was a very special thing in Yoruba culture. When you crown out of your mother's vagina, and the first thing that comes out is puffy balls of afro hair, it's considered that that is your creative mind popping so hard that it comes out as hair. And children like that are considered to be special children. They are considered to be creative children, and their hair is their crown, just like Samson in the Bible. You know, I can't stress this enough. The more cultures you learn, the more you see that syncretism isn't absolute. It isn't like all these things all line up and it's all one religion. But you see the same characters, the same characteristics, the same ideas show up in cultures all around the world. You know, I once saw a Tibetan spiritualist who had miniature steel tools all around their chain, around their neck. That's exactly what children of Ogun wear, miniature steel tools all around their neck. When the Europeans first came to the Oyo Empire, they met the emperor's soldiers, and they were all wearing iron crosses. But it wasn't for Christ; it was for a legba. When they went to study the culture and look at the bronzes, European scholars immediately said that these folks must have been influenced by Greek and Roman culture because they had the same lost wax bronzes. Actually, Yoruba bronzes were higher quality because they did a different technique than the Greeks did. But, and also because of the pantheon. The Greek pantheon, you have how far is Aphrodite from Oshun?
Right.
How far is Hercules from Ogun? You know what I'm saying? You know, you have these very strong similarities. How far is Zeus from Chang'an? You know what I'm saying? So, Mercury from Alegba, you know? Basically, I really do feel these angels are real beings. I wouldn't say they're anthropomorphic like the Greeks do, or have wings like in Christianity. In Yoruba, I think they get it right. In Yoruba, when they talk about the Orisha, they're talking about stones in a vessel. And we as the followers of Orisha are the ones depicted as people. But the actual Orisha are just stones in water in a vessel. Because these figures emanate from the vital energies that make matter itself. So everything that is made of matter reverberates with the signatures, strategies, concepts, identities of these Orisha. So when you see the police run up in a black and white, running the streets like a lake bar, black and white, you know what I'm saying? When you see they change to blue and white, that's Yemoja. Hey, we're not being so street-like. We're now more about rules and regulations and governance. Just like they used to have copper, literally a copper thing. Now copper, that's too free, too open. Now we have the big brass now, society, you know what I'm saying? So as you get to know Orisha, you see how Orisha are expressing themselves. I remember when Giuliani turned it from light blue and white, Yemoja, to dark blue. And all the police went from having these light blue shirts to dark blue shirts. And I knew right then things were going to get deep. You know what I'm saying?
Literally.
That's all
Right.
cool. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? Anything could go down. You know, and that was Giuliani time. It was deep. You know what I'm saying? You know, so learning about Orisha as a culture soldier is really powerful because you can sick Orisha on them without them even knowing. Just by knowing the colors, knowing the signatures of Orisha. You know what I'm saying?
You know, one time I was at, I think it was an action to show solidarity with Akai Gurley's family. And I was there as Miss Justice Jester with my tambourine. And one of the cops came up to me really kind of flirty in a creepy way, knowing that I've probably been known, because I mean, running around with a big red afro with a tambourine, you kind of stand out. But it was interesting because this particular cop, I could tell he was probably, you know, Puerto Rican or Dominican or whatnot, you know, that part of the diaspora. He comes up to me and he says, you know, whenever I see you, all I see is Oshun. And I thought about that because in a way, I did purposely use my sensuality as a weapon, and music, and taunting the police, but knowing that I could, to an extent, get away with it because of my attractiveness and my charm and whatnot. And was even told at one time that I was cloaked because of that energy.
And that's really real. That's really real. I mean, I feel each oration can cloak you in certain circumstances and help you move towards your goals, either by just using the symbols and colors of that oration, or by using the strategies of that oration. You know, it's interesting. The gesture, what was it?
Miss Justice Jester.
All right. That justice to me brings up a bunch of oration. There's Ochosi. Ochosi, O-S-S-O-S-S. O-S-H-O-S-S-I. In Brazil, it's O-X-O-S-S-I. Ochosi means to see is to trap. To see it is to trap it. Ochosi is the archer. In Roman culture, it would be Cupid, but nothing small or cute about Ochosi. Ochosi is about justice. And this is the best story I could give about Ochosi and the type of blind justice I mean. Ochosi had brass bangles that Oshun had given him, and he was very proud of these brass bangles. Ochosi and Oshun are a famous married couple, and Ochosi comes home one day and finds his bangles missing. He gets the whole town together and he's like, listen, somebody better step up and give me my brass bangles. And everybody's looking around. It's like, yo, okay, that's it. I'm gonna shoot this arrow up in the air, and this arrow's gonna come down and it's kill whoever took my brass bangles. If you guys really sit there and not give me my bangles, I'm gonna shoot this off. Nobody gave him his bangles, so with blind justice, he shoots the arrow up in the air, and the arrow comes directly down on his mother.
Oh no.
Now they go and check her hut, and sure enough, she had his bangles. But then you're left with this idea: how important is justice to you? How important are those bangles to you? What is the sacrifice of killing, of finding justice over stolen property? Ochosi is this idea of justice, but again, justice itself has to be turned towards civility by female energy. You know what I'm saying? And all of you as three black women culture soldiers, you can see how important it is in your own bodies of work, these ideas of justice, these ideas of equity, these ideas of freedom, these ideas of showing those who have been devalued that they have value, and showing those who think that they are the epitome of value, that they may not be as precious as they think they are. You know what I'm saying? And what I'm trying to share with you is that this has a long tradition in African culture, in African traditional culture. And these female archetypes that I'm talking about show some of the strategies that were used to curtail the male need for an eye for an eye, the male need for supremacy, the male need for dominance, all of which can be expressed in horribly antisocial ways. You know what I'm saying? So Oya also means the mother of nine, Iyan Sa, the mother of nine. Iyan, the mother, San, the mother of nine. Oya. Iyan Sa. And what they're talking about there is that when Oya married Chango, she wanted to have children, and she could not figure out how to have children. She was fearful that she was barren. So she went to Ozine, and Ozine made for her an amulet out of a queen termite. And she was told by Ozine, every child you have, when you're ready to give birth on the mound, the termite mound. She went on to have 9 children. The 9th child was attacked by the termites, and his face was horribly disfigured, and he was always weakly and sickly. They'd cover him in rags so that you couldn't see how disfigured he was, because he was a royal member of the royal court. And his mom was always scared for him. Moya was always scared for him. And when he got older, he danced for her. And she cried, sad that he might die from his sicknesses. And he came up to her and he said, Mommy, I am a gungun. A gungun means the owner of the hidden force, the owner of the hidden energy. He said, I am a gungun and I will never die. I may one day take these flesh and bones off like I take these rags off. But don't worry, I'll put them back on again and dance for you for eternity. And to this day, a gungun dance in West Africa, representing the ancestors, representing the fabric that was torn, but never actually died. Still alive with life, still dancing in its fragmented expression. Yeah, and that's Oya. Oya is this terror of fabric, the Egungun. And you have the story of Dada and Chango, which I was going through. Dada wanted to rule other people and overwhelm other people with culture. And he had the dreadlocks because he had this hair. All children born with that full hair coming straight out the womb, they're either called Dada or they're called Olokun, children of Olokun. And their hair, one of 2 things are done with their hair. Their hair is never cut. Their hair is either dreadlocked or it's cornrowed. A perfect example of Dada in African American culture is buckwheat. Both buckwheat and alfalfa with their afro tied up with ribbons and stuff, because they would tie money into the hair, because the hair represented the creativity of the mind. So money and gold and ribbons and cowrie shells in the hair represented that this is a mind so full of creativity that it will always make money. You know what I'm saying? So you have Dada, whose hair was put into dreadlocks and had ribbons and cowrie shells tied into it. Then you have Chango, whose hair was knit. Now, the thing about plaited hair is that you have to sit underneath a woman for hours getting your hair plaited with all the other women around you. You hear all their stories. You hear how they think. You get educated. And the idea is that they're not just educating you, they're educating your hair too. They're knitting your hair just like they're knitting your mind. You know what I'm saying? So Chango comes out of that background, where his hair is pulled tight and knitted and put in strict order. You know what I'm saying? So when he gets to the mic, and he had a mic, he actually used a gourd that was in the shape of a mic, just like a leg bud. Both him and the leg bud used a gourd as before microphones. So, I mean, you would think that they'd use the gourd like a bullhorn, like everybody else uses a horn, which flares out. But no, they were using a handle with a bulb on top and speaking into the bulb and thinking that was magnifying their voice. It's some strange ancestral stuff. They knew microphones were coming. They knew MCs were coming. That's what they were doing. In fact, Chango, the poetry that's most associated with Chango is Oriki, which means to praise the head. And all these young brothers on their mics, what they're doing, they're praising their head. You know what I'm saying? You know? Chango would have plates put in his hair that go zigzagging all crazy. Just like in the 90s when we had those crazy plates, that's Chango plates. And what it represented was that their head starts the pattern and breaks that pattern. They go zigzag, they go any which way. Like lightning, finding the path of least resistance. You know?
I have a question. So, what I'm hearing is that hip hop is sort of like maybe the modern day griot.
Absolutely. Griot is a very specific tradition coming out of Senegal, out of
and Mali,
the Mandinka and Mali, the Malayan Empire. I would say that hip hop, you see, you had the talking drum. There's this whole idea of drums sounding like people and people sounding like drums, which is what hip hop's all about.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
All of this is Chango stuff. You know, Chango and Dada. Dada is reggae. Chango is hip hop. You know, Alegba is the blues. Alegba and Yemoja are the blues. You know, and they're also rock and roll. The blues give birth to rock and roll. You know what I'm saying? Jazz, I would say, is Obatala, but jazz is also coming specifically out of Congo culture. Jazz, Robert First Thompson says that jazz, the word itself, comes from jism. Jism is the Congo word for orgasm. You know what I'm saying? But in any case, Chango decides he's going to woo the people by saying, I'm going to actually kick ass. I'm not going to just be about music and culture. I'm not going to sway them with how nice I can dance. God knows I dance great. I'm not going to sway them with how nice I can spit. I'll spit a whole rhyme on you. But I'm going to actually blaze people. You know what I'm saying? And the people, just like the folks in the hood, they ain't violence. So even though Dada was the oldest, they choose Chango to be the emperor. And Chango gets his people on some warlike stuff. You know, he pits one general against another. One general is Timmy, the other general is Banka. And it's interesting because they say Timmy, and Timmy was actually timid. His whole thing was that he would put people to sleep. That's how he won a fight. Come up and he had some special thing where he'd put you to sleep. And while you're sleeping, you know what I'm saying? Which is very similar to how gangsters that I grew up with in the 80s talk about rock a brother to sleep. You know, they talk about, that's your enemy, don't let your enemy, you have no beef. Get up close to them and make them feel like it's all sweet and rock that brother right to sleep. You know, that's a Timmy strategy. Banka is, you may know, Banka is, you may know karate, but I know crazy. That's bonkers. It's bonkers. You know what I'm saying? There's no control of them. You know what I'm saying? So he had these two generals, Timmy and Banka, and nobody could defeat either one. So he puts them and says, "Go at it with each other." And Depending on the part, Timmy kills Bonka with an arrow by putting Bonka to sleep, or Bonka goes crazy and kills Timmy. It depends on the part. But basically, one kills the other one, and everybody gets upset. Why are our generals killing each other? You know what I'm saying? And they all blame it on Chongo, and Chongo's running out of the palace with Oya, and decides they're right. I'm not governing things right, and he hangs himself. But the thing is that after he hangs himself, his followers start calling him Oba Koso, which means Oba, the king. Koso was a city that was in the empire. So he was the king of that city because he's the emperor. But Koso also means does not hang. So they would say Oba Koso, the king did not hang. And this kind of double talk is very important with Chongo and very important with hip hop. It's very important to be able to say two things at the same time, or many things at the same time.
Yes.
They talk about Chongo as speaking once, but meaning many different things.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what I'm doing with my souls. When I talk about this soul school, to learn the African American soul, I'm talking about a free kinship, a free kin family, a American family, African American soul, our souls. But also I'm talking about how we are each an individual soul, how there's only one soul God that we're all a part of. All these different meanings of soul. The way in which we write, because we are a written word people, it breaks up our words so that the same sound we think has different meanings. So you take a word like heard, and you know I heard something, and you know I heard a buffalo, and you think they're two different words because they have two different spellings. You know, just like soul, S-O-L, S-O-U-L, you know, different words, different spelling. It's the spelling that makes it hard for us to see that all of these meanings all kind of work together.
Same with Miss Justice Jester. The jester of Miss Justice, put Miss in front of it to be addressed with respect. Borrowed that from Dick Gregory.
Ain't misbehaving, because before, it's an old thing now. You know what I'm saying? I mean, these things are very important to me. Like for instance, my whole thing, Souls Ain't. Souls Ain't is based on ain't. Ain't wouldn't exist in the English language if it wasn't for African Americans. You know what I'm saying? One of the souls I really love is soul scope aesthetic. Cope aesthetic is they say that Louis Armstrong came up with that word, cope aesthetic. You know what I'm saying? So when I talk about soul scope aesthetic, I'm talking about the rainbow of making everything from the ugliest to the most sublime aesthetically beautiful. And that to me is our job as culture soldiers, to make the whole rainbow of expression beautiful. To make more and more beautiful rather than say, only this is good, only this is beautiful. You know, which is the idea of contest, the idea of supremacy, the idea that there can only be one good thing and everything else is less than. You know what I'm saying? And you see this in Orisha all the time. Like I said, these spectrums of expression that go from the most attractive to the least attractive, but the least attractive become attractive because of the way in which they're used and expressed in the culture. You know?
I have one more question. Is there a West African or Yoruba equivalent to the European jester?
Yes, Alegba.
Alegba.
Alegba is Eshu. In fact, when you look at the clowns, the minstrel clowns, minstrelsy itself, the form of minstrel art in the South and in Europe. I mean, when you look at all of the depictions of slaves in Europe, Black Pete of of the Northern European flavor, where he is the slave of Santa Claus and gives coal out. You know, that's a legba. A legba with Chango. Only in this case, Chango's so white, so much Obatala white. You know, but red and white, that's Chango, the emperor, with a legba, the slave, pauper, homeless person that becomes king. And how does he become king? Through gesture, through humor, through connecting with people, by being a man of the people, you know? And what are the clowns that we have? We have the white clown, which, if I was Irish, I'd be very upset about my time.
For real. No, the United States has really ruined what the clown is. The clown is supposed to be noble.
Exactly.
Yes.
But we dismiss it and make it childish.
Yeah.
And this, you know, like I said, all the nigga art, you know, that's all a late by art. If you look at that, if you look at West African art, a late by art, where you have the big red lips, the bulging eyes. Bulging eyes are a feature of a legba. It represents Oju, which means eye. There's Oju Ode and Oju Inu. Oju Ode means the outer eye, Oju Inu means the inner eye. The inner eye is the spiritual eye. The reason why a legba's eyes pop out is because he has a spiritual eye, an inner eye, that is so powerful, so profound, seeing so much of the spirit world, that it actually pushes his eyes out of his skull. You know what I'm saying? You know, a legba's lips are big and red because, again, red and black. You know what I'm saying? This whole idea of La Roye, which means the owner of rap. That's one of Alegba's, the king Alegba. The Alegba that runs all the other Alegbas is called La Roye. And it literally means the owner of rap, the owner of talkativeness. And it is all about hip hop. Eazy-E was a straight up Alegba. You know what I'm saying? Short, little, dark-skinned brother you don't want none of. You know what I'm saying?
That's true. Yeah.
You know? But so was my man from Public Enemy, Flavor Flav. Straight up Alegba. But that one is on the gesture side. One Alegba, I kill you with violence. The other Alegba.
Yeah, I was wondering
Is that still live?
It's still live.
Yeah. Look at that. Keep it moving.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I was wondering about, like, thinking about the relationship of, like, Oshun and using her sexuality to get what she wants and overcome her enemies and everything. And I think about, like, that, like, being a fat black woman and that association with being a mammy. And that relationship where, like, you know, we were just joking about how I'm like, yeah, I call myself a hoe, or like I feel this need to own my sexuality and my body, but that relationship between, like, also being seen and treated as a mammy, or the expectation of especially black fat women seen as the like laborers and caretakers, and even in those of us who are sexualized, if you hear any song even supposedly supporting fat black women, it is about us giving our tax money. She'll let you drive your car. She'll suck you off, right? Everything, even our sexuality, is about our labor and service. And so I think about, like, you know, I've been listening to, like, you know, like Lucille Bogan, like these, like, you know, dark skinned, you know, thick women who were, you know, very sexually explicit, and, you know, they didn't hide their sexuality. They didn't hide it. Like, that may be more Legba energy from what you were saying before. But I'm wondering, like, at least trying to see myself in these stories when I think of, I think you were saying, you know, y'all wears that crown of pain, right? Like, I feel like through my work, especially, you know, when I was, like, first started with my artwork, like, talking about fatness, wearing that crown of, like, the cliches around fatness to kind of boost myself up, but still also trying to embody that Oshun energy of owning my sexuality. But how do I become Oshun when a society doesn't affirm my attractiveness? Because you were saying you could use your attractiveness, but even if I tried to become you said Miss Jester Justice?
Miss Justice Jester.
I wouldn't get that same reaction in the same costume as you because I don't embody desirability in the same way. So how do, like, with that tale or show, like, with that relationship?
Orisha are like light.
Yeah.
And just like light moves from red slowly to orange, slowly to yellow, slowly to green, each Orisha, you can see the same thing. Like, for instance, you can have Oshun spanning from a Legba to Obatala. You know what I'm saying? Oshun, when she's down and out, a $5 crack whore, that's a Legba. She'd be black and gold at that point. You know what I'm saying? But then as you move up through society, and her skin's dark at that point, but then as you move up through society and through the margins, you get to the point where Oshun's doing the brown paper bag test, and she's a sorority girl. You know what I'm saying? And then all of a sudden weight becomes involved. You know, Oshun moving towards Yemoja, moving towards a Legba, is going to be heavy set, dark skin. But as she moves towards Obatala, she gets more and more light skin, she gets more and more thin, more and more about money and less about sexuality. You know what I'm saying? She becomes the high class girl at $1,000 a pop, and then she transcends that. You know what I'm saying? And becomes the businesswoman. You know, the bank. You know what I'm saying? The one that sends out the little Oshuns to twerk their asses, but she's getting all the money. You know what I'm saying? You know, so you see these types of spectrums. You know what I'm saying? And it's important that you recognize where you are traditionally on the spectrum, but it's also important to recognize that you can challenge any of these other bitches.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. And I think we all, like, it feels like we all have all of them within us.
Hey, like I said, it's one soul.
It is.
We have all the guys and all the girls.
Yeah.
In Yoruba culture, the thing that you want to do, like in Christianity, the thing you want to do is go to heaven, and in Buddhism, the thing you want to do is reach enlightenment. The thing you want to do in Yoruba culture is to develop Iwa Pwele. Iwa Pwele means a character, I-W-A-P-E-L-E. Iwa Pwele means a character that invites gentleness. A character that invites gentleness. And they say that the most important thing you can do to develop this character that invites gentleness is to balance your male and your female sides. Remember I was talking about the sons of Chango that are women? Looking like Oshun, but nothing dainty about it. Big, vulgar, hold your tits up, you know, like a man. Male energy, but a woman. You know what I'm saying? Even to the point of being a lesbian. You know what I'm saying? But still a woman. You know, still focused on being a woman, but a woman that is the son of God. You know what I'm saying? And we've all seen this type of system. You know, it isn't like you don't recognize the archetype. And you can see this type of system once again from a Lake Ba all the way up to Obatala, from the marginalized and the poor all the way up to the rich and powerful. You know what I'm saying? So Iwa Pwele is really simple. It's like this cat Steve Harvey said, you know, to think like a woman but act like a man. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's Iwa Pwele. He may have came up with it in English, but they were talking this shit back in ancient West Africa. You know what I'm saying? It's this concept, and that's why Chango is such a favorite Orisha, because Chango spends time with all the other Orisha, all give him gifts and whatnot. But it is Chango's time with women that is specifically the reason why he excels. It is particularly the fact that he is a guy that was a mama's girl, that was raised up all around women, that had his older sisters and his aunts and his mothers braiding his hair and talking shit into his head, you know what I'm saying? That his education came from women. And it is because of that that he is always willing to do, like for instance, in West Africa, it was traditional for a woman who had twins, for them to either kill one twin, both twins, or both twins and the mother.
Mm.
And then Chango comes along, and he's like, yo, I was seeing this all around. The woman's not a beast, and she's not doing some magic to have a litter of children. What's going on is that the soul is so big, so profound, that Obatala couldn't fit the soul into one head. Obatala had to make two heads to fit that soul into. And that is a blessing for the whole community to have such a profound soul born into the community.
Mm.
And from then on, the twins were celebrated, and mothers of twins would have money thrown at them as they walked down the street. You know? And this is a perfect example of how us as culture soldiers can reframe a concept, because really, all of our laws, all of our opinions, all of our actions are based on concepts, are based on our preconceptions, are based on stories about what reality is and why we should do what we do and why we shouldn't do what we do. You know what I'm saying? So, as an artist, you can take that story and change it. And once you change the story, that's more powerful than writing a new law. That's more powerful than having a whole bunch of money. You know, when African Americans made something that was bad into something that was bad.
Yeah.
Yo, that kind of change is powerful.
Mm-hmm.
When I was growing up as a teenager, taking something like dumb, oh you dumb stupid, and making it, yo, that's dumb stupid French.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That is, you know, I tell you, all around the world, you have people who are on top of their game, winning, and they never come out with a statement like it's all good. But here you have African Americans, and the most marginalized of us, the street niggas, talking about it's all good. It's all good, baby. What that's saying is two things. It's saying, one, God's good all the time. All the time, God's good. We would never disrespect God, because only one thing going on here, God's creation. I don't want to be a critic of my creator.
Mm-hmm.
So that means it gotta be good. Ain't no choice. I ain't gonna disrespect creation. You know? You know, you gotta be God-fearing. And a God-fearing person has no fear of something being bad, because God's good all the time.
Mm.
Get what I'm saying? But then also, this idea of it is those beliefs in bad. It is those beliefs that somebody is stupid and unworthy.
Mm.
It is those beliefs that somebody is weak. Somebody is taken over by their emotions. You know? All of these arguments that are used to dislodge our divinity, to dislodge our agency, to dislodge our power, they're cultural weapons that we as culture soldiers are resisting. And we're finding arguments to overturn those weapons. You called me bad the last generation. Well, guess what? This generation, bad is a good thing.
Mm.
You called me nigger last generation. Well, this generation, nigger is a crown. The kids want you niggas.
That is pretty
You know
high.
what I'm saying? I'm dead serious. I'm dead serious. You know, these are
Interesting.
this is the power we have as culture soldiers, you know, and again, it is a very feminine power, because it all revolves around that oxytocin. It all revolves around, I didn't go through pain for no damn reason.
Mm-hmm.
If I went through pain, it was valuable.
Mm-hmm.
It was a sacrifice well made, because my God is good all the time.
Yeah.
You know?
That's one of the blackest things you could
Yeah.
say. For real. Yes.
And it's that celebration that is the actual spine, the resistor, the force and the soul that made the United States come even close to what it promised in its beginning. You know what I'm saying? Without that, we'd still be living in a Roman fascist culture where only white landowning people had any say. You know? We overcame those lies by making them true. And we will continue to as culture soldiers. That's why I talk about Republicans as being culture warriors, because they're always worried something bad's gonna happen. They're always worried, all those evil, all those bad people, all those bad hombres from the South, the crackhead mother who look at these people taking over. I'm a culture soldier. I have no worries, because I know there's one God. So no matter what, I'm already victorious. Your first mistake was calling them war. You're the only one worried. You know what I'm saying? So I love the Republican culture warriors. You know what I'm saying? You know.
They get us right.
Smack them with that soul job. You know?
Yeah, and just like, you know, on the base level, thinking about like Christianity and like that, like fear of growing up, like the fear of especially traditional African practices as dark, because there's such an acceptance of the complexity of humanity and life and how that is threatening versus the need to always frame everything as pure and white. And at least in my own work and using black, it's always like that whiteness and purity erases the individuality and everything that makes us whole. Whereas the accepting of darkness and even accepting that there are people who practice spirituality for warfare and for all of those other things, like that is like a necessary force that is reflected in even just simply how the world works. Things die, the world can be in chaos, like Mother Earth will destroy herself, you know.
I can't see Mother Earth destroy
well, not
herself.
destroying herself, but the weather can be destructive.
I can see Mother Earth coming for us.
Yeah.
But I'm certainly not going to pray for it.
Right.
And to me, one of the saddest things is folks that, like Jehovah's Witness, I mean, I hate to pull out names, but there's a lot of forms of Christianity that are based in revelation.
Yep.
There's a lot of forms of Christianity that feel that the best thing that God could do is end all life.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? To me, that is the darkest thing you could pray for. You know what I'm saying?
Seriously.
From my perspective, it's all good. Nobody's going to stop the time. Jah will live if there's no life left, and it'll still be a splendid, perfect creation. So it isn't like I'm saying these people are evil, but they come to Haiti to destroy voodoo altars, saying that these altars are evil. But you're praying for the end of life.
Right.
These folks are praying to survive.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not calling what you're doing evil, but why don't you watch and wait for a second before you call someone else evil?
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
For reals.
You know, evil is again something poured upon women in Christianity. The eve of illness, which is when the knowledge of good and evil, the tree that bears no fruit. That's how Christ spoke about it. The tree that bears no fruit should be smite. Because it doesn't bear fruit. It is the tree of criticism. And what does that criticism get you? It gets you the concept of sickness, of illness. There's no such thing as illness. There's just such a thing as being alive or being dead. Everything in between is life. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I don't think that Christ touched the lame and made them walk. I think Christ spoke to the lame and said, "You ain't so lame.
Yeah, like
You are a healthy, perfect person, just like me. It's just you walk like you walk."
Right, word.
Everyone has their strengths and everyone has their weaknesses.
yeah.
And
Together we are one whole.
from my perspective, if you give up the knowledge of evil, then what you're left with is a whole bunch of different strengths.
Right.
You never have to call something weakness. Weakness is a strength. Weakness is a characteristic that might save your life when someone strong is busting themselves up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
You know, it's just the knowledge of evil. It's just criticism that makes us take characteristics and say, this shouldn't exist. That makes us say, that drug addict shouldn't be on the corner, shouldn't be addicted to drugs, should be working all the day. Why? There's other people that would never want to do drugs, and all they want to do is work all day.
Right.
That drug addict is doing what that cat should be doing and is enriching our culture. Shit, Billie Holiday was a motherfucking drug addict.
And so was Gil Scott-Heron.
I'm saying.
And Donald Goines.
And that person that's on the street is giving someone the ability to exercise their kindness.
And
You know, and give.
and even if you don't give, that person, that drug dealer is giving. Believe me, that drug dealer is part of a community. And the drug that they're dealing, the drug that the people are so-called addicted, DNA is Obatala. Obatala, remember I said oxytocin was considered to be the moral molecule?
Yes.
That was in contrast to a book. There's a book called The Moral Molecule. Really good book, I suggest it to you. The moral molecule. Moral like morals. The moral molecule, talking about oxytocin, which I tell you is the molecule Yemaya, period. And DNA, which I consider to be the crystal staircase. Life ain't no crystal staircase, man. It actually is. Obatala, which is Obatala's cane. It is sugar. Obatala loves sweet things, and DNA is a sugar. And it's white. It's clear white, like Obatala. The white staff of Obatala that he sculpts humanity with. And
Is that connected to semen?
yes, absolutely. Semen is very
Sweet.
much an Obatala thing.
Sorry, am I telling on myself? I'm the only one? No. Sorry, that's my ocean.
That's real talk. And female ejaculate as well.
Yes,
You know what I'm saying?
yes, that's right.
You know.
It's connected to seminal fluid, yeah.
You know, and notice semen because of the deep connection with Yemojai. Go stack that far. You know what I'm saying? It's all from the ocean. You know, and the froth, the fresh water of ocean being born from the ocean. But in any case, DNA sculpts us by using binary code. The four molecules, A, Gattaca, A, C, T, G, they come together and form a type of binary code. Binary code is Odu, is Ifa. Europeans got binary code from West Africa. It was Dogon that introduced binary code to Europeans. And then when they learned about this sacred mathematics of West Africa, they ended up applying it to computer circuitry, which is very interesting to me because it's so similar. You know, it's all about Chango. You know what I'm saying? And Chango is very strong with Illuminati. And the idea that electrical circuit on and electrical circuit off, something speaks, it's open. This is all traditional Yoruba stuff. And And if you were a computer engineer, you'd be familiar with the number 256, which is a very important number in binary code. The reason why is because, let's say, a 1 and a 2, that's a bit. So 4 bits are 8 1 and 2s, are 8 zeros and 1s. You know, so you can with 8 bits. With 8 bits, you can make 256 codes of information. And that's how Urdu works. It's 8 times 8, so the 2 mirror to 16. And then the 16 are the 2 parents, and they have 16 times 16, 256 children. Now, I'm not a mathematician, so I can't get too deep into it. And I also I'm not a serious expert in Ifa, but you're basically talking about what the Yoruba felt was the mathematical expression of good God itself. And all of our future technology is going to be based on this mathematical expression that West Africans associated with God itself. And like I said, to everyone's surprise, the very molecules that define our body and all of life uses this math to do it, this sacred math of West Africa. You know, so when they talk about Africans having no written language, no mathematics, it's the saddest of lies, because in fact, the mathematics of West and Central Africa, all through West and Central Africa, they used binary code before Europeans knew about it. Binary code is not only a sacred mathematical language, but it happens to be the sacred mathematical language of life itself. Mm-hmm. You know, it would be the equivalent of people studying the cells in our body and suddenly finding that written in proteins in our cells was "let there be light."
Right.
You know, if the Bible was written into our DNA, but it isn't. But the Bible of West and Central Africa is written into our DNA.
So are there parallels in like, because I'm interested in Paulo, like from what you've learned about
Paulo also uses binary code to their divination. They have a different way of doing it than the Yoruba, just like the Dogon have a different way of doing it, but they all use binary mathematics. With Congo culture, you have the Mamba. The Mamba, you have the story of Ndoki and Infuri. All right, with Congo culture, God is called Nzambi. Nzambi is male. But female energy is also very important in Congolese culture. Mm-hmm. And the balance between female energy and male energy is very important. You can see this in dances. Oh, excuse me, God.
You gonna dance for us now?
Yeah. The rumba.
The rumba.
The rumba.
I know how to rumba.
Well,
Shall I join you?
in the rumba, it's talking about the dance of creation, which is the rooster. You know, the rooster and the hen. And if you look at rumba, the man is the rooster and the woman is the hen. And you see the man coming out, flaring his wings, trying to get the woman's attention. The woman's off to the side, not even worried about that nigga.
Wait, this is different than what I know.
No. There's many different types of rumba, but the rumba in which a man and a woman dance together.
Yes.
You have a man kicking at the woman pulling her skirt away, the man trying to touch something, the woman pulling it away. This tension between the man and the woman is just like I was saying with Sunhouse talking about the blues is the love between a man and a woman. It's just like I was saying with Yemoja, the cold, salty ice water, and Aganju, the volcanic, super hot lava. You know what I'm saying? This hot and cool, this yin and yang. You know what I'm saying? That is. My godfather once told me that the best way to understand Yoruba culture is to have an understanding of Chinese culture, you know, Asian culture in general, but Chinese culture in specific. And that's because in Chinese culture, they have similar concepts like hot and cool, yin and yang, cool being more feminine, hot being more male, you know what I'm saying? Cool being more elderly, hot being younger, cool being more bland, hot being more spicy.
It's a lot of binary.
And actually, hot and cool has less to do with binary. It has more to do with spectrum.
Okay.
You know,
Right.
you do get binary with it. Like, for instance, the Taoist symbol of the yin and the yang is very binary, black and white. But if you notice, they put a dot of white in the black and a dot of trying to show there's a spectrum, trying to show nothing's pure.
Right.
But there is divisions. You know what I'm saying?
And they complement.
Very importantly, they complement.
Yeah.
Because wherever there's something, there's nothing. And wherever there's nothing, there's the potential for something.
Right.
And wherever there's something, there's the potential for nothing. You know, basically it's this idea, we have the idea of empty or zero. In Yoruba culture, there is no zero because of Odu. Zero is the space in which something happens. So it is something. You know what I'm saying? You know, zero is the ultimate mother because it's the ultimate meaning. In order for something to happen, it had to come from nothing. You know? And they're recognizing that now all the time, you know, in quantum physics, that it is specifically nothing, the energy of time and space itself, that creates things. You know what I'm saying?
When you were talking about like spectrum, I thought of that Bible quote. I had to look it up from Revelation 3:16. He says, "I'd rather be hot or cold instead of lukewarm, or I'll spew you out of my mouth." And it's like the rejection of balance and centeredness. Sounds like I never thought of that in that context, but
nobody wants to be basic. Nobody wants to be basic. That's serious. Everybody wants to be the hot or cold. And the idea with this, you gotta think about water. You know, everybody wants to be steam or ice. You know what I'm saying? Cool water, it's never warm. It's either cool or it's hot. If it's warm, there's something dirty about it somehow. You know what I'm saying? You know, something muddy, something not pure about just warm water. You know what I'm saying? You know, there's something that strikes us as clean about cool water. Clean and fresh is cool water. You know, and the hot water is also clean, but a different type of clean. You know, one is clean because it gives you that clean, cool feeling. The other is clean because it killed everything that's in it. You know what I'm saying? That's the relationship of hot and cool. You know, when I was a kid, I used to, I was a bad kid. I feel bad for it because, at least I didn't get past spiders, but I used to torture spiders. I used to put a flame under them.
Confession, I used to put hairspray on daddy long legs when I went to camp.
I
I'm sorry.
I used to put lotion on ants.
Oh wow! They have
Put the
lotion.
lotion on ants like
You
that.
gotta
Was from the windows.
moisturize.
Yeah, just put the lotion on them and watch them
Oh,
struggle.
but we've evolved.
Nana,
We all have the capacity for cruelty.
Nana is the Orisha of insects like that. Nana is the Orisha of insects, and you know, we tend to be wicked towards insects. Nana's wicked. You know? But in any case, I used to burn them, and then I got, my father had some whippets, so you could freeze them. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you could freeze them, just dry cold freeze them, spider. You know what I'm saying? And in doing it, sometimes I burn myself, or sometimes I freeze myself. And I was like, wow, it feels the exact same, whether I burn myself or I freeze myself.
Interesting.
You know what I'm saying? Too hot or too cold.
Right.
You're getting the same feeling.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And you know, in the culture, like for instance, on a gold chain, that's something hot. People get hot over that. Wow. You know, I want that. Grab that. You know. And then there's other things that people get real cool about, like, ooh, you know, that platinum soul. Oh, it's, just cool about that. You know, or like for instance, if you go into somebody's crib and see Andy Warhol, you know, you have that hot, oh, or that cool. Jeez, that has Warhol. Start hating on him. You know, that's too cool. You know. But I mean, I've thought a lot about hot and cool. Hot and cool is and what's really amazing is that we started off, our primal energy was a hot furnace like can never and will never exist again. And we've been cooling down ever since. And the cooler we get, the more and more the more faster we spread away from ourselves. So we come from a hot, dense singularity, and we move towards a cool, dispersed diversity. And that is something that you can think about when you're making your work. Whether you are trying to pull people into the heat of an early existence where they were all one. Like when I talk about us being African American, I'm talking about that heat of, yeah, you thought you were better than Africans, Europeans, but actually you're Africans. Thomas Jefferson thought he could thought one day science was going to prove that Europeans had nothing to do with Africa. But exactly the opposite was proven. That in our hot, dense past, we were all African. Then you could also go at them with diversity of the future. That we are all diverse, but that diversity is all valuable. So even if we don't have the same origins, even if there's actual contrasts between us, those contrasts are not a contrast between less than and more than. Those contrasts are a contrast between different ways of expressing perfection, different ways of being valuable, precious, needed. You know what I'm saying? And that's really, you know, one of many ways of looking at a situation where you can put your work in a spectrum. Like we were talking about Miss Justice Gesture.
Yeah.
So I could put that in the spectrum of Ochosi, where you're talking about blind justice, and you're using the shock of people seeing the hypocrisy of their so-called justice. You know what I'm saying? I could put that with a Legba, street justice. You know what I'm saying? Where the Afro's half black, half red. You know, and you're talking about the vulgarity and confronting people with a realness that the surface of society doesn't like to deal with. You know what I'm saying? or you could be talking about Justice gesture from an Oshun point of view, where society is outlawing these very human expressions. You know what I mean? I remember when I wrote about the Yellow Rose of Texas and Soul St. Josephine Baker for a grant that I was writing. It was, a Guggenheim grant I had written. And just as I learned that I won the grant, Janet Jackson did the Super Bowl.
Oh, wow.
And in my grant, I told about how Oshun uses her breasts to undermine the patriarchy. That the patriarchy wants to outlaw her breasts because they have so much power. And she frees her breasts, and just like Josephine Baker, she frees her breasts, and by freeing her breasts, she completely undermines their whole ability to control that power. And by doing it out in public, she shows how it isn't violent, how it doesn't do anything other than disrupt the people who are being truly violent by trying to outlaw her and trying to violently control the people. And Janet Jackson did just what I was talking about. You know what I'm saying? I like Trip that I thought she may have read my grant. But once again,
yeah, that's where the first thing they sucked was that, right? So
once again, it's these types of, and you're going to see it in your work and in other people's works too. You're going to see Orisha speaking. And the more you learn about them, the more you find that it doesn't matter what culture you come out of, it doesn't matter what your background is, especially in contemporary art world. I mean, I look around, I see Orisha everywhere. You know what I'm saying? I mean, with this piece, with the orchid and the chains, you know, this is very much about sexuality. You know, this orchid exists because there is an insect chained to that orchid that allows that orchid to reproduce. You know what I'm saying? It is through the chains of reproduction that we're able to go down and have children to replicate our DNA. You know, the selfish gene, the DNA that wants to replicate itself. And Mare are chains, you know, Olodumare is these chains, you know. So, I mean, as I look at these pieces, I mean, I'm looking at Oshun here. I'm looking at a sexual contract. I'm looking at the binds of that contract, you know. So what happens is, for me, very quickly, I stop seeing artists anymore. I just see people as vehicles, vessels